Is your nervous system too freaking fried to actually change your patterns with food and your body right now? That is what we are talking about in this episode. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Welcome back to the show, my friend. I am so glad that you pressed play. This is one of those episodes where it's kind of like, this is what the doctor ordered. It's not necessarily what you feel like you want, but it's absolutely what you need to hear right now. If you feel like you are feeling stuck, and I don't like to use the word stuck because it is so generic, but it is just the way that we tend to feel when we so badly want to change. Like we want to stop repeating the same patterns, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions. We want to feel better and we want to have a clearer mind. But it's like no matter how much we want it, or how hard we try, nothing's changing. It's changing a little bit, but barely enough to make a significant difference. And that is so incredibly frustrating because then you start to feel like, am I ever going to be able to change? Like, is this going to be my life forever? And it feels like the more you want to change, it's kind of like this Chinese finger trap where the harder you try and the more frustrated you get. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but this little toy that you put between your fingers and you have to set your fingers free. And the more you pull your fingers apart, the tighter it gets and the more stuck you feel in this little toy. And the counterintuitive thing is that you have to go against it and you have to bring your fingers together. And so it feels like the harder you try to fight and get yourself out of this cycle, the more stuck you feel. And so in this episode, we're talking about why that's happening and why your nervous system right now might just not be in the conditions it needs to help you release those patterns and change what is going on subconsciously. Because remember that your conscious mind is only 5% of your total mind. So you've got a lot of stuff going on subconsciously, patterns, habits, emotional loops, beliefs, thoughts that we are just not able to tap into right now because of the state of your nervous system. So here's what I mean by this, and I'm going to bring you into my life because I'm right there with you. Like the reason I'm always pulling for my episodes, I'm always pulling on either stories of my own life or questions I get from my clients, conversations I'm having with my members inside of Food Freedom Academy, questions I get from my DMs. Like I'm always tapping into what's going on around me. And I am always very honest. And I sometimes I wonder, I'm like, should I share this much about what I am going through and what are some of the challenges that I'm having? But I like to think that by showing you that I'm right there in the trenches with you, even if it's no longer with food in my body, there's other challenges in my life and I'm always focused on growth and improvement. And so I had this huge realization last week. So I'm going to tell you about it. I have been feeling so stressed lately. Like, you know, that feeling where you can barely think about much because there's so many decisions that you have to make and then so many thoughts going through your mind. And I was feeling that way. And I've been feeling that way for months now. And even with meditating every single morning and journaling every single day and making time out of my day to regulate my nervous system and go for walks and see my friends, like all of those things, I was doing what you would think I was like doing everything right, like checking all of the things off of the checklist. And yet I was still feeling incredibly stressed and feeling like a lot of the patterns I was trying to change were still coming around. We're still there. We're very persistent. And so last week, what happened is that usually Luke and I spend Friday nights together. We're both usually pretty tired from the week. Sometimes we'll go out and see friends, but oftentimes we're like really tired when Friday night rolls around. And last week, Luke had plans. I can't remember quite. I think he was going to see a show or something. So he had plans with a friend. And so I had the Friday night free to myself. And I actually had a really tough Friday. Like that Friday was really tough. I cried. I was really tired. I was also getting my period. Like it was not a great day in my head. And I knew that I had the Friday night to myself. I was going to be alone. And I noticed that there was a lot of discomfort at the idea of that in my body. Like I was kind of dreading it, which is unlike me. Because when I'm in a good place, when I'm regulated, I like spending time with myself. I need spending time with myself. And so I was feeling really uncomfortable at the thought of that. But because I've done enough work to know that discomfort usually has a lot of growth and a lot of perspective and healing on the other side, I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this opportunity to tend to myself, do some self-care, have a night to myself where I'm going to take a bath and I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to like really just, I could feel that my nervous system was really, really fried, like really dysregulated. And you will know that you are experiencing this too in a couple of ways. Number one, what I find, and I think this is really important to know yourself and know your nervous system, because we all have a different way that our nervous system communicates with us. And for me, I know that I am living in survival mode. So living in chronic fight, flight, freeze. I don't really fawn, which is more of the people pleasing side, but I know that I'm living in survival mode when my thoughts tend to be very protective. Like I'm always trying to anticipate the future. And usually I'm anticipating that something bad is going to happen. So you're always kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop. You're always bracing. There's a lot of thoughts that are focused on the future, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, overwhelm. There's also this constant need to be busy, like to outwork yourself or outdo yourself. So maybe for you, it's like more rules, more restriction, more dieting, more exercise. Or on the other side of it, it's like, I just need to not feel anything. So there's a lot of things that you might be doing as a way to distract yourself. So a lot of emotional eating. Maybe you're spending a lot of time on your phone. Oh my God, that is a big one. That is a big, big indication of living in survival mode. And it's also a loop because the more stressed and overwhelmed and in survival mode you are, the more you turn to your phone as a way to feel a temporary sense of relief from it. So you don't want to feel what's going on in your body. So we pick up our phones, we pick up Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or phone games, and it gives us a temporary sense of relief. But then what happens is that oftentimes social media and the news, especially right now, just makes your nervous system more agitated, more scared. There's more fear. There's more stimulation, more distraction. I mean, like you think on Instagram, I'm not shitting on Instagram because I'm on there, like I go on the app, but even when I'm on it, I know I am being bombarded with so much stimulation, like 30-second video. And then you immediately scroll to the next one. And so that is just putting your nervous system on more high alert and more dysregulation. So it becomes this loop. And so going back to knowing when you are moving into that territory of living in survival. And the thing is, most people, 70% of people live by the hormones of stress and survival. 70% of people are spending their entire life in a state of stress and survival. Like that is a crazy number. So going back to that Friday night, I decided, I just kind of had this intuitive realization that tonight, what I need is I need to not look at my phone. Like I need to be as understimulated as possible. Like no TV, no podcasts, no music, none of that. I just had this realization that I had fallen into this pattern of constantly being distracted and never being bored. Like even with the fact that I was meditating and I was journaling, like during that time, sure, I was spending time with myself. But at the end of the day, I was still picking up my phone all the time. I was still operating on autopilot. I would pick up my phone to like look at one thing on Instagram. And then 10 minutes later, I realized that not only did I not check that thing, but I have fallen down into this rabbit hole that I had no intention to fall down into. How many of you have done this before too? And I was listening to podcasts and I was watching a lot of TV at the end of the night. And I liked watching TV and spending quality time with Luke. But I realized, and this goes back to getting curious about what is all of this doing for me? And what am I using the TV and the phone and the constant distraction for? Because I was at this point on Friday where I was uncomfortable spending time with myself, which tells me that I was uncomfortable spending time with my thoughts. Ouch. That's a tough realization to make when you are someone who helps people with this. And I think it's important to share because as much as I do a lot of this work, it's a constant process of bringing myself back to awareness, noticing when I'm slipping into survival, when I'm slipping into disconnection from myself. And so I was on Friday night, like I went for a walk in pure silence. I went for an hour-long walk. It was so beautiful. The sun was out. Then I came home and I ate my dinner in complete silence. And then I went to go take a bath in complete silence. And then I journaled for hours. And I realized that I need to be more bored. And I need to cut off certain things in my life, at least for right now, that I am doing on such an autopilot that I don't even think about it. So I took my phone and I looked at what are all of the apps that I open, like without even thinking about it. I pick up my phone and just muscle memory, I click. And I want you to really audit yourself right now and think about how many apps, which apps do you pick up your phone and just automatically go to? And I deleted all of them. I deleted my email app because I thought, I don't need my emails. I don't need my work with me 24/7. Because that's another thing as being a business owner and entrepreneur is I have my work with me constantly, like 24/7 on my laptop, on my phone. And I said, I don't need this. I do not need my emails. I do not need to be reachable 24/7. I deleted that. I deleted Instagram. I deleted any work apps that I would just like subconsciously pick up. And it was really uncomfortable. Like, you guys, it was uncomfortable because what happened once I deleted those apps is I realized I had no reason to pick up my phone. I had like my phone was in the room and I would pick it up and I'm like, there's nothing fun. There's nothing fun to do here. I almost reverted back to making my phone a flip phone where the only thing I'm using it for is texting and calling. And, I have to open Instagram a couple of times and I'll usually do it from my desktop now for work because I like being on there and I like sharing content. But the reason I did all of this, and I'm doing kind of an experiment, I started with 2 weeks. I said, okay, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks, and then I'll kind of go from there. The reason why I did all this is because I know that the reason patterns don't change is not because of a lack of discipline. It's not because you're not trying hard enough. Right? Like right now, if you feel like you are trying and you are listening to the podcast and you are following the social media and you're doing all of the things, I see you, I hear you. It is not because you are not trying hard enough. It is because you are overstimulated and the door to your subconscious, which is where you change your patterns. It's not in your conscious mind. It's not with more information. It's not with more knowledge, right? Like that's only 5% of the whole story. The things that you keep repeating, the thoughts you keep repeating around food, whether it's the guilt producing thoughts or the anxiety or the F it, I'm just going to eat everything in sight. All of your thoughts, your emotions, most of your behaviors are all happening without you making the conscious decision to do them. And what happens when you are constantly overstimulated and distracted and busy, and you are never allowing yourself to be bored, you are never allowing your nervous system to downshift and to relax and to be in the present moment, is that you are not making it possible to connect with those subconscious patterns. Your system never gets quiet enough to actually process anything. It doesn't get quiet enough for you to get curious. You don't have enough space in your life to ask yourself real questions that are going to matter. I had 2 of my clients in the past week who both shared similar breakthroughs and realizations, like people who have struggled with their own mind and their relationship with food and their relationship with their bodies for decades, like decades. And they both made a realization in the past week that just by slowing down and by creating space in their life and by asking themselves the right questions, bringing curiosity into, why am I eating this way? What am I turning to food for? Why am I thinking this way? Is this pattern helping me or not? Is this serving me? Just by being able to get curious and ask themselves the right questions, they are already changing their habits with food at such a rapid rate, not turning to food to cope, not restricting before going to a social event because now they realize that's what causes them to binge at that social event. Like all of these realizations that you can only tap into when you create space for it. So let me walk you through what the modern survival mode problem is. So you wake up and you immediately check your phone. And you might not do all of these, but I even want you to think about your day. Like right now, pause and think about your day. And ask yourself, what are those times that I am intentional about being bored, about being distraction free, Think about that for a second. So let's go back to the modern survival mode. You wake up, you check your phone, you check the news, you check your emails, you check Instagram, you check social media while you're eating, and immediately you are bombarded with the news, the content of the entire world. And then you listen to podcasts while you're driving, while you're walking. You work all day and you switch from one task to another to another. Maybe you're working, you check your phone. Did someone text me? Is there something to post on social media? Then you come back, you're working, you check, you switch to this, you switch to that. And then you scroll again at night. Maybe you watch TV. You're taking care of kids, right? People need you. You play phone games. You are always consuming something. You're watching TV while you're eating. You're doing something. And so there is no space, right? The result is your brain never has time to be quiet. There's no boredom. There's no stillness. There's no reflection. So you stay in that mild survival state all day. And when you are in that survival state, I want you to think about you are being chased by a lion. In that moment, when you're being chased by a lion, what is your number one goal? It is to survive, right? It's just to get through the day. And so when you are in survival and your only goal is to survive, you're not thinking about what you're thinking. You're not able to learn new things. You're not able to reflect. You're not able to get curious, because when you're in survival, the goal is not to change. The goal is to survive. And so when you're being chased by that lion, you are operating on autopilot because your body takes over. Your body's like, we are going to run as fast as we freaking can. And so in that moment, it's not about how can I do something differently? It's how can we operate on the law of least effort and run things on autopilot? So when you're in survival, everything is on autopilot. So when you're on autopilot, you are repeating the things that you've already repeated time and time again, because you know that path. You know how to get there. You know how to think those same thoughts from your past. You know how to feel the same emotions from your past. And you know how to repeat the same behaviors of your past. And so you will track your food if that's what you've done for years. And you will think about calories and good and bad foods. You will think about the shame, or you will repeat the same patterns that you have done for years, because in survival, your brain doesn't have the energy to do something new. And when it comes to food, not only does it make it really hard to change your relationship with food, right? It makes it hard to change your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. But it's also in those states that we turn to the things that are going to numb us or feel a sense of control, feel a sense of groundedness, because when you are constantly bracing or on edge or feeling some sort of stressful emotion, we want to feel better, like fast. And so it might be that emotional eating becomes your automatic coping mechanism. You might be turning to food more. You're not even thinking about it. You don't want to be doing it. You keep telling yourself every morning or every night, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. But then you fall back into the same cycle. Or you might swing to the other side and you are gripping to the control. You are gripping to the restriction, to the tracking, to the over-exercising, to the micromanaging, because in a world that feels out of control, It is the only thing that you can control is food and your body. And so not only is it really hard to change in that state, but you are more likely to turn towards habits and behaviors that give you a temporary sense of relief and of control, and like a big emphasis on the word temporary, because it only gives you a hit in the moment. And then your brain associates that feeling of, okay, that helped. That made me feel better. That made me feel more in control. And of course, it doesn't last. And then, kind of like a drug, you need more of it. When you want to feel better again, when you want to feel control again, your brain has associated it with that external thing, with the food or the tracking or the control or the restriction, the overexercising. And so then you do it more and you do it more. And now it's like the only way that you can feel better is by doing those external things. And so, like that Chinese finger trap, you have pulled yourself even tighter into those patterns. And so the uncomfortable truth, and it is uncomfortable for me too, is that most people say that they want change, they want clarity, they want self-awareness, they want their life to be better, but they avoid the condition that is going to create that. They avoid space and silence and boredom, nothing happening. Man, and I want you to even sit with that right now and think about like what shows up in your body. If I were to, and this is, I'm not saying you have to do this, but it's just like a little thought exercise for you to think about. If I said for the next week or two, you're going to delete all of your apps on your phone, right? So no social media, no games, none of those things that like give you a sense of distraction or whatever. And you're also not going to watch TV. You're not going to listen to podcasts. And any time that you are not working or taking care of your family or like doing those things that you need to do to survive, anytime that you're not doing those things, you're just going to sit with yourself. Notice what comes up for you. If it's like, I don't want to do that. That sounds boring. That sounds uncomfortable. Or like any kind of emotions that come up in your body. And just notice that. Just get curious about that. I remember a couple of months ago, Luke was telling me about how he wanted to do a dopamine detox. So kind of what I'm doing now. That's what I said I was doing to Luke. I was like, this is a dopamine detox. This is what I need to do. But he has said that to me a couple of months ago. And at that time, I wasn't like at my own rock bottom, I guess. Like it didn't hurt badly enough. I wasn't suffering enough. So I remember he had said that he wanted to do that. And he was like, do you want to do it with me? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds boring. I don't need that. And it's like, yes, that's actually the point, is that it's supposed to be boring. Boredom is not a problem. It is the doorway to awareness. It is the doorway to change and to reflection and to your subconscious mind. Because whenever I am like out on a walk or I'm in my bath or I'm sitting in silence is when I'll have this little thought from my subconscious. And either it's a good thought or it's a problematic thought. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even realize I was thinking that way. I didn't realize that this was on my mind. I didn't realize how much this was affecting me. But you can't have those thoughts when you are constantly just paying attention to the external world, where social media is telling you how to think, or the news is telling you how to think, or the podcast is telling you how to think. You can't have your own thoughts. And I am not saying that those things are bad. There's actually some really great things on social media that I love to watch because it grounds me, it teaches me something. Same with podcasts. Like, I'm not saying those things are bad. Of course I'm not. I have my own podcast. But when you are always consuming and you are never creating space, then how are you supposed to take that information that you're consuming and integrate it into your subconscious mind? It is when stimulation drops that things start to surface, your thoughts, your feelings, your patterns. And that is the moment that you can actually see yourself. So if you are starting to notice yourself in these patterns, and you might be recognizing, like, I am never bored. I'm always stimulated. My nervous system is fried. Like, yes, 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 I can see all of this. First of all, like, having that awareness is beautiful. Like, that is the first step. And sometimes we don't realize how bad it is until maybe it's like me and you are faced with this night to spend by yourself and you're feeling so uncomfortable around it. Or you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh my God, yeah, of course. Of course I keep living on autopilot. Of course I keep reliving the emotions, the thoughts, the patterns of my past. Of course I'm not changing. There's no space for me to change. So if you're noticing that, first step is so important. And you know that I always like to give you some practical shifts. So maybe you are like me and you want to do a dopamine detox. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go all in. And that is what I felt that I needed for myself. There are times, most of the time, I don't recommend to my clients to go from 0 to 100, especially when it comes to behavior change. Like if you're trying to start an exercise routine or you are trying to change your eating patterns, like I am against going from 0 to 100 and doing things cold turkey and being very extreme. Like I'm very against that. However, when I tapped into myself and I asked myself, what do I need right now? What does my nervous system need? It needed a reset. Like it really needed this switch to go off and it needed a reset. And so for me, kind of like going cold turkey and deleting all the apps and saying, I kind of set some ground rules for myself. I said, all right, for the next 2 weeks, none of these apps on my phone. And I am not going to watch TV if I'm alone. Because what I was doing is I was ending work. And then while I was eating dinner, I would be watching TV because Luke is usually not home at night. He comes home later. And so I would be watching TV while eating dinner. And then that was like my way to quote unquote unwind. And so I said, I'm going to sit with myself and I'm not going to watch TV, or I'm doing like a personal transformation course. So I'm going to watch that instead because that's going to help me. It's not going to distract me. It's going to help me. And then I'm going to watch TV with Luke. So because that's like our quality time. And so that's when I'm going to watch TV. And I'm just going to be intentional about being bored. Like that was my big thing. I'm going to be intentional about being bored. And so you might want to do that. I'm going to give you some practical things that you can start doing right away. Things like walking without your phone. Ooh, that's uncomfortable because then your mind is like, but what if someone needs to reach me? What if someone's texting me? And again, this goes back to this survival brain that thinks everyone's trying to get to me. What if there's an emergency? What if? And we go to this like really catastrophic scenario in our mind. I even noticed that on Friday night when I put my phone in the other room. I thought, well, what if Luke has an emergency and he needs to text me? And then I was like, oh my God, girl, you are so silly. So walking without your phone, eating meals without a screen, without a phone, without a TV, without a computer. Wow, can that be uncomfortable? Yeah. And again, notice when your brain is like, that is not fun. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is not for this to be fun. The point is for you to be bored. The point is for this to be uncomfortable. Sitting outside with no stimulation, like literally just sitting on a chair, sitting on a bench, and just being with yourself. Letting your mind wander. Leaving empty space in your day. The first 2 days that I did this, it was deeply uncomfortable. It was deeply uncomfortable to not check social media. I have two accounts. I have a personal and a professional because I like to separate those two things. And I noticed that I had this thought that if I didn't go on social media, I was missing out on things. Like I was not following my friends' lives. Like it was so weird where my thoughts were going. I was like, what is this? I was feeling FOMO. So the first few days were deeply uncomfortable. But I said, I am going to stick with this. I'm doing an experiment. And then what happens is that your nervous system slowly starts to settle. And all of those energetic and emotional bonds that you had created to those habits, to those apps, to those screens, to those outside stimulations, those emotional bonds, they start to break. And when you are no longer attached to all of these things in your external environment, you get back that energy for yourself and clarity returns. It's not going to happen within days. Like I'm not saying that right now I'm like perfectly great, but over time, clarity starts to settle. Your nervous system starts to settle, and there's less of those thoughts of gloom and doom and pessimism and, oh my God, what if this happens, and bracing. And you eventually start to feel more peace and more sense of control over your life. So I'm going to give you a little challenge, my friend. For the next week, I like to do experiments. I like to do short-term experiments because it gives me a sense of an end date. Like, okay, I can do this for 2 weeks. Can I do this indefinitely? I don't know about that, but I can do it for 2 weeks. So for you, it might be I can do it for 1 week, or I can do it for 5 days. Whatever it is, stretch it enough that it's uncomfortable, but not so much that you don't think that you can do it. And then create a minimum of 10 minutes of intentional boredom. Minimum. And you can do more if you want. No phone, no podcast, no music, no talking, just sitting or walking, and notice what comes up. Not to fix it, not to do something about it, but just to see it. Because you can't change patterns. You never slow down long enough to see. Yes? Does that make sense? So that's your challenge that I have for you. And send me a DM on Instagram. And we're going to call this the boredom challenge. Okay, we're going to call this the boredom challenge. And I want you to send me a DM on Instagram. I'm going to be there to hold you accountable because I'm right there. I'm doing it with you. And I want you to say, hey, Sabrina, I'm doing your boredom challenge. This is what I am committing to for the next X days. Okay, so go to Sabrina Magnan Health, sabrina.magnan.health on Instagram, and send me a DM right now. Pause this episode and do that. I'm going to hold you accountable. And let's do this together. Let's reset our nervous systems that are a little fried right now. And let's bring ourselves back to a state of transformation and change and away from a state of survival. Yeah? All right. I love you. I can't wait to see your DMs. And let's do this together. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye, my friend. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.